Hi, welcome back to Examining Life. My name is Amanda, and today I am back in Boston Common in Boston, Massachusetts. And today I am going to be asking the question, what is the meaning of life? And be sure to like and subscribe and enjoy today's episode. So what is the meaning of life?
I don't know, the meaning of life, it's almost an impossible question. My perspective has definitely been shaped by, well, like everybody, the experiences I've had in life, the environment, who raised me. I was raised in a pretty conservative, religious environment. In terms of, religion, or Christianity specifically informing my view on the meaning of life, I don't know, I think there's a lot of great things that you can take from Christianity.
What sort of things?
So I was thinking about the idea, just kind of, I'm just out here walking around the common, about being a light in the world. And I think that that's really profound. And just that idea of, regardless of your belief system, just seeking to be a positive agent, seeking to change people's lives and influence people in a way that enriches them and that leads to their flourishing and improves their health and well-being. And there's something very special about that. Now, does that relate to the meaning of life? I mean, from like a strictly biological perspective, it's just about procreation, and it's just about furthering, at least from, I guess, a strictly kind of humanistic perspective, it's just about furthering, our place here on the planet.
You mentioned both like procreation and furthering the species, but then also being a source of light and positive reinforcement in the world.
Absolutely.
So I feel like those are kind of related though, because say in times of war when there's a lot of death, well, that's not the promotion of life. That's the promotion of death.
Absolutely.
So I feel like having a positive light in the world prevents wars or ends wars or something along those lines, which promotes life.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it kind of comes in a whole circle.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Do you have any other wisdom that you'd like to share?
This is maybe a little overly sentimental, but I think that just that idea of being a light in the world, I think that it might not be the meaning of life, but it's definitely something that's deeply important. Where I live actually now in Boston, it's a little bit of a rougher area, and so even just this morning, walk outside my apartment building, at least in South Boston, walk outside the apartment building, and there's there's a young woman who's doing heroin, just kind of right outside there.
So either for that woman as an individual or society as a whole, how do you see other people being a source of light for, say, someone who's not heroin?
What I was thinking about after seeing that and kind of going up into my apartment and just I think appreciating the fact that I have this apartment and I'm not in a similar situation, because something happens in my life, hardship, lose family members, lose friends, lose my job. I mean, so many things can happen, and I have my vices as well. I mean, they certainly maybe don't possess me, mentally and certainly physically in the same way that something like heroin would, but I was thinking about empathy, right? And I think that also ties into the idea of being a light in the world. Empathy is one of the hardest things to cultivate, and something I really struggle to personally. There are certain behaviors are going to lead to flourishing and just the promotion of health, right? And I think that that's probably the best way of, I don't know, in terms of taking an ethical stance, just looking at what is conducive to a person's genuine well-being. I think it starts with understanding personal history, but it has to not necessarily end, but there has to be action. There has to be some sort of trying to support this person and lift them up. And in a situation like that, obviously, it's just, you don't do that in culture. You don't do that in our society. There's an interesting thinker, and I'm gonna kind of, I guess, give him a plug right now. His name is Sam Bachman, and he's I believe he's Israeli, but he has this idea about, in our society in particular, and throughout all of human history, there's almost a spectrum. So on the one hand, you have narcissism, and on the other, you have, in essence, mythology, right? And throughout human history, people have, world religion. There's so many mythologies that people have subscribed to find meaning in life and to give people purpose. And so on the one hand, you have people using that as a means to just get them through the tribulations of life. And on the other hand, you have narcissism, which is it's not necessarily just living, and hedonism certainly might be a part of it. Not that all narcissistic people are hedonistic necessarily, but it's another coping mechanism to get through life, kind of withdrawing within yourself and only worrying about yourself to a certain extent. And certainly in our society, if you have a lot of narcissistic personality traits, it's rewarded. Or it can be,
Yeah.
I think, depending on what it is, because you do need to, play nice in the sandbox. You do need cooperation in order to even do something like move up the social, the corporate ladder.
Going back a little bit to like growing up in the religion and
Yes.
like kind of going back and forth with like different churches and whatnot, is it the religion itself that gave your life meaning, or would you say it's more like what you learned from religion that gave your life meaning?
There is something you get from being a part of the church itself, and that's the relationships. That really can become a cornerstone of your life. But in terms of the actual process of worship, I wouldn't say that necessarily gave my life a ton of meaning, or even that process of trying to cultivate a relationship with God, because I don't know, it kind of sounds cliche to say, but in something like prayer, you could ultimately just be talking to yourself in a quiet spot, so and it kind of goes back to it's like that kind of that magical thinking, playing into that mythology a little bit as just a way to kind of cope with just the stress of being alive.
But whether it's real or not real, it helps either way. Like, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to sound morbid, but in a certain sense, whatever gets you to the grave, I think that every single person has a way of framing the world. You need to, in order to make sense of it, to navigate your interactions with people, to understand the laws that are more or less imposed on you when you enter into this world. Yeah, but I think that kind of going back to the idea of being a light, and one of the positive things the church really does do, when it's at its best, is serve others. I think maybe you don't actually need to have an answer, just as long as you have the right intentions in the moment.
Thank you so much.
Hey, no, thank you. I appreciate your time.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments below how you would answer the question, what is the meaning of life? Thank you. Bye.